these bones live? The dead man came out, and Jesus said, unbind him and let him go. When Ezekiel had his vision of the valley of the dry bones, he was in exile in Babylon along with most of the other Judean leadership. The temple in Jerusalem had been destroyed completely. The future didn't look very bright for God's chosen people. When Jesus arrived at his friend's house in Bethany, Lazarus had already been dead for 4 days. His sister Mary didn't even come to meet Jesus, but stayed at home. She's probably feeling lost and depressed and confused. Martha is the more active, more extroverted, and here more assertive sister challenges Jesus. And in fact, she's saying, you help all these strangers? And you can't keep your best friend from dying? You're nice to all these guests and you ignore your family? Even in what could pass for a continuing faith, her expressions carry with them, for me at least, a kind of simmering anger and resentment and challenge. Things were just not working out for these people. The Jews, the Bethany family, these were supposed to be people who had God on their side. Of course, the Old Testament is not primarily history, and the Gospels aren't really a biography of Jesus. The meaning of these stories, the dry bones, the raising of Lazarus, are much, much deeper than history or biography. And we can find a hint to that meaning in the passage from Romans that Anne read, where Paul tells us that to set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the spirit is life and peace. Although don't take that in a dualistic way, which it's easy to do, as if the flesh and spirit are two different things, two opposing states of being. We are monotheists, right? Flesh and spirit are really two aspects of the one single reality of the one God's creation. Two perspectives, maybe, with different valuations, certainly. Flesh may often be blind to spirit, but spirit certainly pervades flesh, and in so doing sanctifies it. That's one of the things that Holy Communion is all about. That's one of the things Christianity is all about. So the issue for Paul here, the key to his point, the Christian key to meaning in life, the meaning of life, is to see the Spirit as expressed in the flesh, to experience eternity as it opens up in time for us. That doesn't mean, of course, that the world of the flesh, as it's put, is not under the control of the principalities and powers of darkness, as the epistles to the Ephesians and the Colossians put it. Powers of darkness whose own interest is served by keeping us unaware of both the overarching transcendence of the world of the Spirit, as well as its essential immanence in life that can lead to meaning in life. The story of the dry bones, the story of the raising of Lazarus point us as Christians to the theme of resurrection. But resurrection is often understood by Christians as pertaining mostly to a personal destiny, an individual hope for a life beyond death. And of course, there is, as I've experienced myself, an amazing peace of mind that an awareness of resurrection can bring into your individual personal life. But we have to be careful. The personalization of resurrection has, for a long time, been used by the powers of the world to serve their purposes and not our spiritual benefit. Don't worry your pretty little flesh about all of this, they seem to say. Your spirit will be fine in heaven later on. We'll take ours now. Just you shut up and follow orders. There's a couple jokes that would fit in here, but it's not the right situation for one of them, and it's too long for the other. The important thing for us is to understand that Christianity doesn't come in individually sized packages. Salvation doesn't come in personalized portions. Wholeness for any one of us depends on wholeness for every one of us. And just as individuals have been tricked by the world, seduced by the world, into seeing resurrection as both a denial of death and an offer of pie in the sky by and by, if you put up with things, instead of seeing it as an offer to live our full life right here and right now. The church as a body has been tricked and seduced by the world as well. And co-opted by power in one way or another, or the illusion of power from Constantine through the Crusades, by regal papacies and pope-like royalties, positions of civic leadership and community respect, clergy on special committees, the Episcopal Church as the New York Stock Exchange at prayer. So proud to have the Church of the Presidents across from the White House. Or the moral majority turning a blind eye to corruption for a seat at the kids' table and a few tax exemptions. The stench, as Martha so aptly put it, became pretty obvious in Europe 100 years ago with World War I. And everybody praying to the same God as they slaughtered each other. Over here, I think there was some eye-opening stuff with the disclosing of so much clergy sex abuse, and what I think is equally evil, the institutional, financially based defensiveness of the churches in reaction to it once it came out. But tempus fugit, times are fleeting, and karma sometimes works. And even when the church is righteous nowadays, it comes off sounding pretty self-righteous, and it can follow along in the wake of secular social reform and be proud of itself only about 10 or 15 years late. I think even the megachurches have started to decline. The only even so-called Christians left with even an illusion of worldly power and influence strike me really like waiters at a party pretending to be guests. It's kind of pathetic. But it's exactly that worldly irrelevance that ought to give us our greatest spiritual hope since 325 AD, I think. It was in his homeless exile that Ezekiel heard that rattling. The bones coming together. It was on his way to the cross that Jesus called forth Lazarus. And it just may be, with 29 people gathered on an April hill here in Monterey, that the God of all reality is acting to change the world. We have a mission here. Whether you're here one time or you're a long time, whatever, we've been called, but also chosen. As said, many are called, few are chosen. But that doesn't necessarily mean to me that those who are not chosen are rejected. I believe that all people live in God's grace, whether they know it or not, however they practice it or not. But certain people need to carry the message consciously, to be the light of the world, to serve the world in Jesus' name, to live sacramental lives as outward and visible signs of that inward and spiritual grace, in ways that may be more obvious than others. You are chosen for some reason or other, for some purpose or other. Some of you may be retired from whatever occupied you for most of your lives, but you're not retired Christians. Maybe you've lived longer, more days, more years than you have yet to live. I know I have, most likely. But the one moment for which your life was specially created, the one point in eternity for which you were chosen, the one event toward which the whole universe may have been flowing into your life, may be yet to come. Might be this afternoon. Might be 10 years from now. So say to these dry bones, say to your soul, say to the world, say to the universe, cry out to the earth, cry out to the Spirit, come from the four winds and breathe on these slain. Lazarus, I'm out. Thanks be to God.